Here's what's happening. Executives are making decisions with incomplete or filtered information. So today we're unpacking how managing up really became the avoidance of truth and how honesty wins today and how we can make more space for that.
Welcome to Brave Proximity, the space where leaders and changemakers finally exhale, tell the truth, and get the validation they rarely receive. This is not a how-to podcast. This is not motivational wallpaper or corporate comfort language. Here, the messy, is it just me? Moments become turning points. I'm Marissa Green.
I'm Susan Page, and we are futurists and practitioners who have spent decades inside turbulence, helping leaders who care deeply navigate culture, crisis, egos, expectations, and everything in between. We've seen the gap between what leaders and changemakers feel and what they're allowed to say. Brave Proximity is a place to close that gap. Each episode starts with the elephant in the room, often disguised as a pet peeve, and we follow it to the deeper truth underneath. We do not just talk about leadership. We get close to what leadership actually feels like. So, this is going to be a good one.
I can't wait to get into this one.
So, Marissa, what shade of rose-colored glasses did you help a leader put on today?
Bright pink. Absolutely bright pink. Maybe like a tiny bit of purple. Oh, the rosy-colored glasses. What are we doing?
I feel like we are filtering a lot of truth these days. My favorite line when people want to filter things and shelter people, or they're really struggling with the courage to say something, all I can think about, don't get mad at me, but I'm like, you get paid a lot of money.
Handle the hard truth.
I feel not sorry for you. I think I can hold your hand. I can help you there. But this is why you get paid the big bucks.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yes.
Okay, so I love that. Let's put the elephant on the table about this. So what we're talking about today is how people will hide the real truth from leaders just to smooth things over, to make things feel more comfortable.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. And in particular, they do it to really avoid the risk of upsetting a leader or pushing a leader out of their comfort zone. But the risks to the business are huge when we do this.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a couple stories from you about experiences or what do you see when you see this happening?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I see it a lot. And again, going back to where I'm strong, I've had a lot of experience with this. And in fact,
you mean putting the truth right in front of someone's face? She's like a bull in the china shop.
I am a little bit, and I have been called a bull in a china shop. And I remember I had an employee that worked for me once, and he said, "You're so good at saying really hard things to people." And I said, "But I feel like I'm also good at supporting them." And so I think
you are. You do both.
That's the twofold thing. I will say I've had a lot of experience recently with we have to fix this before we bring it to the CEO. We can't, this will trigger this person. And I think we make up things in our head of what will be triggering. And even if it is triggering, these are hard truths that we have to walk through.
Right.
And I do think I say this a lot is, have we ever asked Bill, can he handle the truth? Or because people do evolve. And I was thinking about this last night. I think I have a lot of good thoughts in Shavasana. I don't know if that's good or not, but I was thinking to myself, some of the best CEOs, some of the best senior leaders, some of the best leaders in general at any part of the organization, they have a growth mindset. And so, and I've heard this many times. Why didn't somebody tell me this earlier?
Yes.
Why didn't somebody tell me this earlier?
Yes.
And so I think sometimes we're doing a false narrative of they can't handle the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. When in reality, I think it's often that we can't handle being the ones to deliver it.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a mentality of the fix it. Like
you
said, I can fix it. I can fix it. I can fix it. But what if you can't? What if you can't? And then you've gotten so far down the line. I cannot tell you how many of my clients will say to me, Marissa, they went away. They did the work in a silo. They they got so far down the line and then they brought it to me and it doesn't make any sense.
It was so
It
derailed.
was missing this, and this,
Yes.
but they were too afraid to bring the issues forward
Yeah.
and too afraid to have these moments in between where they just had the real conversation with the leader to say, I'm not sure where to take it next. Or does this align with what you wanted? And
Yes.
so I think there's just a reality of gut checking ourselves and saying, is it really that this leader or this person can't handle the truth? Or is it that I need to find a more creative way of opening spaces to be able to come and share productive problem solving?
Co-creation.
And
yes. And again, we started off with CEOs. We're talking about a higher level of the organization. And I use those examples because I do think that there's a lot of prevalence of this there. But if you go back to it and you remember what an executive team is made for, what a board is made for, is there's multiple aspects of that. And one of them is thought partnership.
Yes.
I think we get so busy that we're like, there is no time to bring this up. And the truth is that the time that it would take to ideate for 5 minutes, get it on the radar, have somebody walk away and think about it, saves tens of, maybe even hundreds hours of strife if you are misaligned and off the path later on, which is what you said earlier.
Yeah, and actually some of the best leaders that I've worked with, that's how they actually set up their structure, is an open door within reason.
Right.
I mean, they're busy people, but they would always say, like, I'd rather you grab me for 5 minutes or send me a text message and tell me the dirt on what I need to know about this project in order for you to be able to keep it moving. But there was a time period where I worked with leaders where that was not the case.
Yeah.
They expected you to come with perfection.
Yes.
To come with the problem solved, to come with everything clearly. I have a client now who calls it drafty work.
Yeah.
Every time she sits down with her team, I love it. She's like, okay, everybody, bring me your drafty work. It's just an expectation that it's not going to be perfect when it comes in. And in that drafty work exists the conversations about the difficult things that we need to manage through. And I do think that there are CEOs and executives out there who are very willing to do that.
Absolutely.
I think it goes a little bit back to that idea of like professionalism and executive presence, right? Our ideal of perfection. We think everything has to be tied in bows, buttoned up perfectly before we could bring a potential problem or uncovered truth forward. When it's like, remember that they are also human.
Yes.
They also just want real talk. They also just want to know what's going on in my business that I need to understand so that this doesn't swirl. And the swirl is like...
The swirl is real. And sometimes it is, too, asking the hard questions, getting a different point of view. When I've worked with senior leadership teams or executives, they bring up questions that I have never even thought of.
Yes.
And again, it's a different lens. And then I think about, okay, it's all about learning. If we have to deliver a perfect product, even in our own vertical, something is wrong.
Right.
Something is wrong.
Right.
Because that is not how humans work, especially when you want to drive innovation. And I don't care how big the organization is. I do not care. Then, maybe you get a little bit better at it or you want things a little bit tighter. But we have to understand that we are in a period of rapid change.
Yes.
We are not going to have the answers. We cannot deliver a product that has a bow on it all the time. And in fact, we're wasting hours. We're wasting revenue.
So many hours.
Yes. And also
so many decks.
If if I go to hell, I will
be PowerPoint.
I will be in chair pose doing a PowerPoint. That's what I feel like is
There's no Shavasana in
There's
that.
no Shavasana.
You are not getting any good
My
ideas.
Shavasana will just be these thoughts swirling around. But do you know what I'm saying is we have to change also how we interact with the highest levels of the organization.
Yes.
And we want to get, and we're going to do a whole episode on, could we also, do I need data to show you how many breaths I've taken today? We're going to talk about that too. But I mean, this is something that I think is important. What you hit on is the process and where we signal people at the highest levels of the organization who are the most detached.
I actually wonder if CEOs, especially in really large organizations, so super complex, where they're just, they're being hit all day long with different things and they have to ruthlessly prioritize. I wonder if they actually realize how much swirl and spin is happening in order to bring them something very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple. So
Right.
one of my clients is a giant organization, over 10,000 employees. And I've worked with various levels in the organization. So we worked with the C-suite to do one project, worked with this the CHRO and their team for another project, and then all the way down into one of the business units to work with their team on a very particular project. And I remember, so as a consultant, we have relationships like up, down, and all around, right? And so we're working with this team deeper in the organization. And they're trying to put forward a new idea. And they really, like, they've been thoughtful about it, but it is provocative. And it's, like, edgy. And it's going to push people into,
my
like,
favorite
new places,
kind.
right? Yeah. And it was very cool. And my colleague and I were sitting there like, well, yeah, I mean, I just put it forward. Like, because for us as consultants, that's what we get to do all the time.
Yes.
We don't have the same political weight. We don't have the same, like, loopholes that we might fall into. And not only that, we had the relationships. Like, we could have called the CEO and been like, hey, this is an excellent idea. Like, you need to pay attention to it, you know? But they don't have those same relationships. And so the swirl, it took
the
weeks.
dance.
It took weeks to figure out what were they going to put forward, how was it going to be positioned. And then the other downside of that is because they don't have, again, back to relationship and the proximity and the understanding, what they end up putting forward was great and it all worked out, but it had to do a dance through 5 different people.
Yes.
And then you have to reposition it through 5 people in order to even get the, like, minuscule part of it to the CEO. And I know that in complex organizations, sometimes that's just how it is. Like, and so again, back to whether we can solve it or not, I'm not sure. But the amount of swirl that's happening because you do have to storytell differently to every part, it's like, why can't we all just, like, cut to the chase?
Okay, you made me think of something. I love that story because as you're talking about that, I'm also thinking about ownership within each of the executive levels too. Is sometimes I totally agree with you that the narrative needs to, it can't be a one size fits all. It does have to hit the needs of the different. If we're at the executive team, and if you're at an audience in general, if you're pitching something, there are different levers, but you still want to hit hard on your core messages. Sometimes I wonder if, the executive team, the dynamics there too, is somebody really owns their vertical. Somebody doesn't really own their vertical. And so, because, when you and I, and again, I want to give credit where credit is due. We've seen some really great leaders in HR, some really great leaders in strategy who are like, this is my lane.
Yep.
I feel confident about it. I'm bringing this to you because I want to put it on your radar. We will solve for it, but I want your thoughts.
I just want you to know about it.
Yes.
I'm going to leave it here so that we can co-create.
Correct.
So that we can be part of this together. And then there are other leaders or parts of an organization that it's actually like the person right below the CEO who's creating the, like, no, let's make it perfect. No, let's make it perfect.
Right.
And so I think that's something worth teams thinking about.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a leader thinking about what needs to go up, how can you, again, I think so much of this comes back to relationship. And how do you use proximity for the relationships that you are building so that you can use it as a tool to break down these barriers?
Yeah.
The barriers of perfection, the barriers of the swirl. And for CEOs and high-level leaders, I think they're much more willing to hear the truth from someone that they trust.
Yes.
And someone that they have built a relationship with.
Yes.
And that, I think, could be potentially a reframe or like a game changer for how people look at their stakeholder engagement.
Yes.
A word I hate.
Well, what you just said really resonates with me. It was a reframe that I did a couple years ago. And no surprises. Anybody that knows me that is listening to this is like, I have super high expectations for leaders. And I realized that I wasn't going to ever give that up. But what I started to reframe it as is I'm also really good at what I do.
Mhm.
And so I might expect you to balance the what and the how. And I'm really good at coaching and developing people to get there. So
Mhm.
it's the support that comes with it, which builds the trust.
Yes.
And
Yes.
once you know, and I think that's kind of what we're talking about here too, is don't sanitize everything, but come with the perspective of, you know, hey, Amanda, I know you're busy. I know, but I want to bring this to you. And you we can do this together. I trust you. I want you to trust me and my team, but we want to be accurate on this. We want to
Yes.
get it right. And I do think you're right, is without establishing that personal relationship, and you have to prove yourself too. You aren't necessarily able to do that. But then find a way, because we cannot keep sanitizing information.
No, because sanitizing information is also what leads to the wrong work getting done.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
False hope.
False hope. And it goes back to this. Filtered truths creates false confidence. So how many times have you been either part of or heard of CEO or high level leader, down comes the request?
Yes.
Right? This is what we need
It's more like
to
a
do.
hammer.
Right. It's like a hammer where all other work like halts
Yes.
to a screeching stop. Everybody has to reorient and come into this, you know, whatever the CEO says. Now, most of the time when that happens, it's because they either heard it from a board member in another company, somebody gave them one nugget of an insight
Yes.
that was misguided,
Right.
or they just have like a pet project, something
Yes.
that they really, really like, right? So all of your other work has halted. Everybody's now full press on this item. And you're the one person in the company that realizes it's a terrible idea. Terrible. And you're like,
How lonely.
exactly. You're so lonely. And you're like, I can see the train wreck. I can see it happening.
Yes.
Right. And you're this person who's like, but how do I get other people to see the train wreck? And are we going to be able to like share that truthfully? And so you start working.
Yes.
You're like, okay, I'm going to start with this person. I'm going to find my allies.
I know.
Find my allies. I'm going to get my data. Right? You might have the intuitive hit that like, you know, it's a disaster,
Yes.
but you got to back it up with data. You got to find your allies. You have to, right? And lo and behold, by the end of this, like trickling all the way up, it's probably been a week by this point.
Yes.
That it trickles
if
all the
we're
way up.
lucky.
Right?
Like, yeah.
Right? And then the CEO is like, oh, well, okay, no big deal. I just thought it was a cool idea. Do you know what I mean? Like the process of how everything circulates around one individual's cool idea.
Yeah.
And so I say that one to just obviously like help people feel less alone, because
Yes.
we've all been there. We've all been part of those projects. But also to say, if you're the one that can see the train wreck, don't be shy
Yeah.
about finding the pathway to bring the train wreck to light.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people are going to spin and swirl on a project that, and how many times has this happened? Like you put the project out and it falls like dead weight.
Yes.
And a year's worth of work has just been, and then the CEO's like, why did we do that?
Yes.
And you're like,
And
well,
why did somebody say something?
right. Why didn't someone tell me?
Yeah.
So we just want to create a little bit of space for like, it's okay. I think that a lot of leaders expect that. They don't necessarily, they're going to tell you if it's something you just have to do.
Well, yeah,
Like-
absolutely. And we're not going to say that doesn't exist. That absolutely exists.
It does.
But I don't think those are the ones that, I think that might happen for each function once a year.
Right.
Like it's not
Right.
the consistent work. You also said something that made me think too, is sometimes, and maybe as we're thinking about like what is the path forward, we don't have a solution, and this will be fun too, because I think sometime we'll bring on a CPO and talk about how they've navigated this in this current environment. But I do think it goes back to too is, okay, what is your relationship with the executive? How are you, like your ways of working is say we're in HR, the CHRO, I own the people function. It is my job to, come back to you with, here's the pros, here's the cons.
Yes.
And so even having that, don't say yes every time. Your people are back. I'm just working happily on my priorities.
Right.
And then all of a sudden
Right.
it's like, And it's always an and. It's not, let's
Uh-huh.
take this off. It's an
Uh-huh.
and. And so,
Mhm.
think about upward, how you manage that. And it is, let me think about this and get back to you, just so that eyes wide open. But then also to your team, you should already be thinking about, what am I going to take off of them? What am I going to
Yes.
take off of their
Yes.
plate?
If something new gets added. So to me, that also anchors back to the conversation about strategy and ambition,
Yeah.
right? So if a request is coming through that, hold please, I'm going to think about this and figure out where it fits in. But when you have a strategy to back into, it's much easier to go back and say, well, this is where it's going to
Here's our
derail
North
us,
Star.
and this
Yep.
is where it's going to propel us. And then the same thing with ambition, because here's where like the murky waters of a request or an idea get overblown.
Okay. Tell me more about
Right.
this.
So I think, and this happens at any level in the organization, but somebody's idea for what might be possible comes forward. And all of a sudden, once you start to get like several hands and arms into it, depending on their like personal connection to it, depending on how
Yes.
excited or passionate they might be about
Yeah.
it, that like idea that might have started as something that maybe took somebody 3 days to go figure out and put forward a proposal, or,
Yeah.
here's what we could do about it, has turned into like 3 weeks of work, $100,000, and the need for a giant program to be pushed out to the whole organization.
Right.
And so I think it's also about gut checking when these things are coming down the pipeline, asking the really clear questions to understand, what am I actually meant to go figure out right now?
Yes. Yes.
Am I building a whole program, or is this like a case test, pressure test to see if your idea makes sense
Pilot.
for the
Yeah.
organization? Because you can kind of build in the opportunity to come back and say no.
Yes. Okay. I love what you're saying. I love cats. So when people are like, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, I'm like, I'm never skinning a cat. Okay. But I think what you're saying is we think yes is the only option.
Right.
And it is not. There are ways to a yes and. A yes and. And I know people kind of laugh.
Improv.
Yeah, well, I love the yes and so maybe on the reframe too, and like how do we think about moving forward is try different ways instead of saying yes all the time. Think about the impact to your team. Think about how, like, sit on it a little bit. What really successful people who tend to be executives, I'm not saying that they all are doing everything right. They've clearly done a lot right. Really successful people want to say yes.
Yes.
And
They want to fix it.
they want to fix it. And at the pace of change that we're going at now, it is experimentation central.
Yep.
So there are downstream effects to a lot of things. Also, another reframe that I want to put in here is we learned through a very expensive program in Truth that most poor decisions are made at the wrong levels of the organization, meaning that, for example, I always use this, is you would never ask the CEO to decide what material goes on the chairs.
Right.
Because
that's not worth their time.
It's not worth their time. You should be pushing decisions down to the right levels of the organization where the information is there. And or going back to what you said, that is where we should be collecting all of the information to say, here's what could work, here's where it could go awry. It should not be done by one person or a leadership team.
Right.
They should, and that provides development too for others to feel like they're part of the solution.
I love this. As part of the reframe or potential way through it is gut check yourself on where you're getting your insight.
Yes.
What level of the organization is the decision happening, but also what level of the organization is the insight coming from? I had a conversation the other day where we were talking about talent needs and like what does talent need? And the organization was talking about, well, we'll get data from external sources, we'll meet with the leadership team, et cetera, et cetera. And there was a person in the room from talent acquisition. And they were like, hello, I have a team of recruiters who talk to talent all day, every day.
Yep.
We know the market. We understand what's happening. And what was really key to this is this group of people had such great insights not only about like talent needs, but also about where the organization wasn't hitting the mark
Yeah.
in what talent was
Yes.
expecting.
Yes.
And in key areas that the org has been trying to move the executive team to new places. And it's like this wealth of information that just nobody had asked them. And so start asking at the right places for the insights that can tell you the truths that you don't yet know.
Yes.
So it's like being willing to ask, and it's also being willing to share.
Okay, this there's 2 points I want to make on this. And you said something that I was a lived experience is when we are in the office, traditionally in your function, there are so many different layers and different sub functions within.
Mm-hmm.
I would wander over
Yes.
to all the different. And
That
again,
is where being in the office makes a difference if you leverage it right.
yeah, nobody really wandered over, but
They're all
I
in
would
the
wander
cubes
over.
now.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I would say, "What are you working on? What are you doing?" And then it would stimulate a question for me to say, "Oh," and I would take that information back to my function, and sometimes they would be like, "Why would you even ask that of them?" And I was like, "Why not?
Why not?
Why not?" And
Why
then
not?
so what I'm saying here too is be curious to what is happening and where your information can be in an organization. Do you remember we had a great CEO at a company that we both worked at, and he would be in the kitchen talking to anybody. It could be the person filling the coffee. It could be the person that was, cleaning the gym. And he knew, it's a he knew so much information. And those individuals were helpful in many ways because he would also know who would be rude to people. And being rude to people doesn't just show up when it shows up across the board. And so again, every conversation is an opportunity. The other thing on the shift, the reframe is stop shooting the messenger.
Stop shooting the messenger. Start elevating
praising the messenger.
Because here's the thing. People, the fixers, get the attention.
Yeah.
Right? This person jumped into action. They got us something right away. They were able to solve And then meanwhile, 6 months later, the project is no longer existing because they missed like 4 or 5 different things because they just jumped into quick action. So start praising the messenger that comes forward, even the quiet voices that say, I'm not sure about this.
Right.
And start inviting more people than just the fixer to ask questions and poke holes at the beginning in a positive, like open way. But to your point about growth mindset and fail fast, if we get more proximate to the idea that failure might be possible, then we're more willing to see the failures that are possible before they happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And another maybe thought about how to move forward through this is I had somebody at each company. I mean, you were this for me. And then more recently, I had somebody that I would say, I got to pressure test this. And this individual had no problem poking holes in all of the different areas, but also had a lot of institutional knowledge. When you're new in an organization and you're just building those relationships, some people punish those individuals that have the institutional knowledge. I celebrate it.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I think it's because there is we've always done it this way. But that, you can reframe that too as, I love that you've always done it this way. Tell me why. And what's one thing you might do different?
Yes.
Yes.
You can help shift somebody out of that. And I like what you're saying about asking somebody to pressure test, asking somebody to poke holes so that together you can see the pitfalls before they happen.
Yes.
But you can't always see them all yourself. It's why diverse teams are better than solo teams or teams that all think the same.
I know.
Because you're going to miss the freaking boat if you all think the same way.
Well, and one more thing before we kind of close this out is we talk a lot about leaders at all levels. And we said a really powerful truth decisions are made best by the people or with the information of the people that are closest to it. If you are running a hierarchical organization, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
Because and I say this in the kindest way, but the kids, the young leaders that are forging their way forward are holding so much gold. They are observers. They are critical in good ways. And if you are not opening up the data source
Yeah.
to get,
Yeah.
object or subjective insights across the board,
Mm-hmm.
you are doing yourself a huge disservice.
And they're going to be the nimble ones that skip out and go start their own company that becomes your
Absolutely.
competitor in 5 years. So
Absolutely.
it's a very real thing. Well,
Yes.
I think that hopefully we've helped you all take your rosy-colored glasses off, get a little bit braver to be proximate to these hard truths, and to become the one willing to share what you know. Your
Yes.
knowledge is power. So find the avenues to do it and tell us all about it. We'd love to hear from you. You can check us out on LinkedIn. All and everything. All of the links are in the show notes. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.